Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Garrison. In the spirit of the trees, in the spirit of living nature of which we're a part, with deep gratitude to our ancestors and all the generations that have brought us to the present moment, I want to welcome you to this session of Humanity Rising as we embark on day 2 of a 6-day program that's exploring youth and mental health, one of the most critical social issues of our time. Over the last 2 years, as we all know, we have negotiated our way, tried to navigate our way through a pandemic that even now, 2.5 years later, still hasn't gone away. And as a result of that, we've endured lockdowns, we've endured social distancing, we've had to put on masks, and as social animals, we've been forced into isolation over time, something that hasn't happened to human beings in all of recorded history. So we've paid a very heavy price for the responses that we've made to the pandemic that still is with us. And what we're discovering is that isolation has a very profound deleterious effect, and particularly on young people. And the remedy for that is community, is spirituality, is whatever we can do individually and in our families and in our community to establish contact with each other. And as you'll note from my beginning and the fact that I have trees and an expression of nature behind me, with nature herself, the more connectivity we have with sentient life all around us, the healthier we are, the more vital, the more abundant our lives become. And that's what we want to explore today, the relationship between community and spirituality on the overall health and well-being of our young people. I want to be very grateful as we begin our program to the documentary Connecting the Dots, which has been directed by Nomi Weiss and executive produced by Tom Eddington, who you'll hear from later on in our program. This documentary galvanized people all over the world during the pandemic and alerted people to the real challenges that our youth are experiencing, not only because of the pandemic, but because of the way our world is structured and the very nature of modernity itself. There's many challenges that are systemic in our society that are debilitating our young people in very profound and multidimensional ways. And we have to acknowledge that openly, globally, and proactively so that we can ensure that they mature into their adulthood as full human beings. So that's our program today. We'll be saying a lot more about the documentary Connecting the Dots. But right now, I want to invite everybody, as we always do on Humanity Rising, just to take a minute or two. And in the midst of all the hustle and bustle of our world, just center yourself in your body. Your body is nature. And close your eyes if you can and attune yourself with your heart. And for the next minute, feel through your heart your relationship to the community in which you find yourself. Feel nature. Feel spirit. Thank you, everyone. We're going to begin our program today with a trailer from the documentary that Georg will now play for us. And after it's over in a few minutes, I'll introduce our moderator for today. Georg.
Do people know what mental health is? Do people know what mental illness is?
Every single one of you in here that's battling, every one of you that feels like you're alone, every one of you who feels like nobody understands you, how many of you relate to what I'm talking about? Raise your hand.
There should be some kind of a system that talks about mental health problems in schools, like in lessons, just anywhere really.
They're having to deal with a lot of very, very ill people rather than it being more about prevention.
Youth mental health, it's the same story everywhere I go.
I want to get to the root of it and to really figure out the why from the mouth and the stories of young people.
I can sometimes feel a panic attack. Like I woke up this morning and I knew for a fact I was going to have a panic attack.
I'm taking this because I think if I look in my face, it'll calm me down.
I don't even see myself alive after high school.
People need to hear the truth that most kids our age are not fine.
I never saw myself represented anywhere. I felt like it was very invisible. Not only being a woman, but a Black Muslim woman, I just thought that those problems were for everybody except people like me.
I don't want other young people to feel the way I did growing up. Finally, I have a chance to fight the system.
I think we need to start hearing from young people like myself when making policies related to somebody's mental health.
There are so many things inherent to a space when you build it up properly that help people become more resilient and help people find community. When you make sure a space is safe, where you make sure that everybody feels welcome into a space, people feel like they can be themselves.
I'm telling my story. It's literally making something painful inside beautiful.
So sick of being unhappy because I'm so young, and I feel like I need to be able to experience the world in a positive, healthy way.
I just wanted to be accepted for who I am, and I just wanted to be loved.
It took me 5 years to finally open up about my mental illness, but it wasn't as scary as I thought. It was one of the best things I've ever done.
Young people have to know that even though at times they may feel that they're in the darkness, if they can just know just to hold on, that light is going to come over the horizon.
The minute we start talking about mental illness, then people will not be ashamed.
I just really hope the world could change.
It's a powerful documentary, everyone, and we encourage all of you who are listening to take an initiative, to be in contact with the website and to organize viewing wherever you are. Bring your friends and community and family together and watch the documentary. I've seen it, and it's one of the most powerful documentaries in recent memory for me, because it really drives home in a very powerful way the challenges that are confronting young people all around the world. And as a father of 2 sons, I know personally the truth of which the documentary speaks. I want to now introduce Christy Allen. She's a dynamic young woman from Canada. She has a master's degree in public health from Simon Fraser University. She works as a specialist in knowledge equity at Frame and is a passionate advocate for the inclusion of young people in the design of our public health system, and really emphasizes community and spirituality as integral aspects of mental health improvement among our young people. So Christy, I want to welcome you to Humanity Rising, and I turn the program over to you.
Thank you so much, Jim, and thank you for grounding us in such a wonderful way this morning as we get started together. Welcome to day 2 of the Global Youth Mental Health Summit, everyone. My name is Christy, and I'm calling in from Barrie, Ontario, Canada, which is located on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe people. I'm so grateful to be here today and join in this discussion with you. And this week we have a variety of conversations that will explore different topics related to youth mental health and well-being that are all inspired by the Connecting the Dots film. So we started yesterday by discussing the state of global youth mental health, and some key themes included resiliency mindsets, finding sources of strength and support through community and resources and music, mind-body connections, and how shared understanding and preventative measures can promote positive mental health and well-being in young people. Tomorrow's discussion will explore gender and questioning, and on Friday, we will be talking about parenting and youth mental health. And then finally, on Monday, we'll share a rebroadcast of a previous event that explores youth mental health and substance use and music, and I hear it takes place inside a very big harp, which sounds very interesting. So we hope to see you at all of these events throughout the week. And as a reminder, if you aren't able to attend this session, not to worry, they're recorded for your viewing later. So I'm very excited to introduce today's topic to you on belonging, spirituality, and community, creating safe spaces. As human beings, we're hardwired for collaboration and cooperation, and we have a high need for belonging and community. We all need to feel safe, which requires that we be seen, heard, and appreciated, and we need a connection to something larger than ourselves. So today we'll share in a global conversation with Dr. Lisa Miller, some young people from the Connecting the Dots film, Director Noemi Weiss, and Executive Producer Tom Eddington. So I will now introduce you to all our panelists before we get started. I'm pleased to introduce you to Dr. Lisa Miller, joining us from the US today. She's the New York Times bestselling author of The Spiritual Child and her new #1 national bestseller, The Awakened Brain. She's a professor in clinical psychology program at Teachers College, Columbia University, where she founded the Spirituality Mind-Body Institute, the first Ivy League graduate program and research institute in spirituality and psychology, and has held over a decade of joint appointments in the Department of Psychiatry at Columbia University Medical School. So welcome, Dr. Miller.
It's a joy to be here. Thank you.
I'm pleased to also introduce Noemi Weiss, Director of Connecting the Dots. Noemi is joining us from Canada and is an award-winning writer, director, and producer who spent over 20 years telling stories on big and small screens, from her worldwide advertising projects to her award-winning documentaries. As a humanitarian and an advocate leader, Noemi journeys where stories take her to bring voice to the world's most vulnerable. Her films have been seen in more than 100 countries, receiving numerous awards, but most important, making a difference in communities around the world. We're also joined by Tom Eddington, an author, executive coach, and business advisor, and one of the executive producers of Connecting the Dots. He holds an MS in organization dynamics from the University of Pennsylvania, and as a scholar of conscious leadership, he's passionate about bringing more conscious leadership into the world, which he does through his coaching and advisory work, film and media projects, and board positions. As CEO of Endangered.Global, he brings his commitment and experience to impacting climate change and biodiversity loss. And I'm also very excited to welcome participants from the Connecting the Dots film to share in this conversation. So today we're joined by Heavenly Tanner from the US. She's a 21-year-old college student attending Indiana University Southeast. And I'll share a little bit about her experience in the film, which I'm sure she'll speak to more later, but she shares that when she participated in the film, she was about 17 years old and she really wanted to make a difference. And she went through some very challenging circumstances as a teenager, and she used to think she didn't have a purpose, but she found her purpose through her pain, and that's to become a psychologist and motivational speaker. And I'll let her speak more to her experiences, but it's really wonderful to have you here with us today. We're also joined by Lear Weltsman from South Africa. She's the founder of Breaking the Chalk, an education and mental health company aiming to break the way that we provide education and support to young people's mental health. Since the age of 14, Lear has struggled with mental illness and is passionate about sharing her story through her advocacy and her company. For the past 8 years, she's been the youth youth spokesperson for the South African Federation of Mental Health and speaks at government conferences, podcasts, talks, summits, and international mental health research. So welcome, Lyra. We're really excited to have you here today. So thank you all to all our panelists for joining us, and to you participants for joining and watching today. And I'll now turn it over to Dr. Miller to share her expertise on today's topic of community and spirituality.
Thank you. That was a beautiful introduction. And I'm so grateful to be here together with the fellow colleagues and panelists. I'll share with you that 20 years ago, there was no clinical science that reflected on the deepest, truest nature of our humanity. And furthermore, there was no clinical science that focused on the importance and the power of the adolescent and young adult in realizing a form of human awareness that simply hadn't been tapped by the clinical sciences. But we now have a very, very strong science that I think is empowering to youth, because of all people on earth, it is adolescents and young adults who are actually the most spiritually attuned. So let me share with you, if we might, a 90-second opening practice through which I'd like to invite us into common ground on an awareness of your gift, your natural endowment. This is a 90-second practice. It will start with 5 breaths, and then I'll walk you through, if you will, a thought exercise, a spiritual visualization. Okay. So I invite you to take 5 breaths and clear out your inner space. With your eyes closed in your inner world, your own warm, safe inner space, I invite you to set before you a table. This is your table. And to your table, you may invite anyone, living or deceased, who truly has your best interest in mind. Anybody living or deceased who truly has your best interest in mind. And with them all sitting there, ask them if they love you. And now you may invite your higher self, the part of you that is so much more than anything that you have or don't have, anything that you may have done or not done, your deep, true, eternal higher self. And ask you if you love you. And now finally, you may invite your higher power, whatever word you may use, however you know, your higher power, and ask them if they love you. And now with all of these people sitting here right now, what do they need to share? What do they need to tell you now? And when you're ready, I invite you back. This is your counsel, and they are always there for you. Who shows up may change depending where you are in your road of life. And you can ask your counsel anything at any point, at any moment. You are never alone. You are never, ever alone. People may come and go. A friend might turn on you. You may feel betrayed. Your counsel is always there. And your capacity to access your counsel, your higher power, your highest self, and those who truly have your best interest in mind, whether they are embodied or here in spirit, This is your birthright. You are given this capacity to perceive. Every one of us has within our brain this neuroseat of transcendent awareness. And what we see into is real. It is the deeper, truer nature of life. This was a practice, and I always thank my teacher, shared with me by the late Dr. Gary Weaver, who worked with people who suffered deeply, and many of whom no longer trusted the adults in their lives. And this was a way that Dr. Weaver taught me, and I have taught many students, and I offer you this gift through the hands of time from Dr. Weaver to access your birthright, your natural capacity through which you know you're loved and held, you are guided, and you are never alone. Christy, how did you experience that? Did you like that?
I think that was such a great way to build connection and share in that sense of community and belonging right from the beginning. So thank you so much for sharing that with us, and such a great tool for us all to take away from today, I think, moving forward. So thank you.
I'm so grateful. And I start by sharing this common awareness, because this seat of transcendent relationship that is ours, this way of being in the world where we can always call counsel and feel connected to spirit, the transcendent relationships in our lives, is the birthright for every single one of us, but we are oftentimes not encouraged in our normal everyday education or in our mainstream culture to build this natural awareness. Every one of us is born with a spiritual brain, but it is a choice and it's a practice to build the muscle and awaken our spiritual brain. And this very clear practice in the language of life is one path amongst many to awaken our naturally spiritual brain. Now, why is that relevant to our global struggle, as you put so beautifully? Christy, it is indeed a global struggle, most acute amongst post-industrial countries. This global struggle with incredible pain in the heart of adolescents, of our teenagers and young adults. And I have 3 of my own. I have taught hundreds, probably thousands. Never in the history of post-industrial culture have we seen such mass suffering. The rates of depression, anxiety, addiction, and even suicide, as put so beautifully in the trailer, expressed from the heart of young adults and teens themselves, have never been at this level. And with the sharp escalation in the diseases of despair, has been an equally sharp decline in the strength of personal spiritual life, in the cultivation of spiritual life, both within the beautiful world faith traditions and outside of the faith traditions. Whether or not we are religious, Catholic, Hindu, Jewish, Muslim, whatever our tradition may be, or spiritual but not religious, every one of us is innately a spiritual being. And in science, we know this. We know this through MRI studies. We can track the spiritual circuits in our brain. We know this through twin studies. We can determine whether any capacity is inborn or learned. And the capacity for spiritual life is 1/3 inborn. We're born with the equipment to access and see the deeper spirit through life, but 2/3 environmentally cultivated. Again, sometimes through the embrace of a faith tradition, sometimes from our parents or grandparents or schooling or faith community or daily lived life, but 2/3 environmentally formed is where, frankly, my generation has failed your generation. Because we did receive the torch. We received the torch from your grandparents. There was a felt understanding that we are all spiritual beings in the air and water of our culture. There was a felt sense of a moral life that was derived from some sense of transcendent awareness. There was a spiritual culture in the air and water of our global community, held in many voices, many different beautifully diverse words and symbols and practices, but it was there. And we gave your generation a great deal of achieving awareness. We taught you how to go after what you want and get it. We gave you the best tools we had of technology. We gave you all sorts of outward instruments to go after your goals and make them happen. But that was all in the land of achieving awareness. And achieving awareness on its own is completely insufficient to feel full and alive, to have meaningful relationships, to build a sustainable world. We gave you a psychology of achievement, but we didn't give you its absolutely necessary counterpart, which was the seat of awakened awareness. We gave you a lot of achieving awareness, but the capacity to awaken your naturally spiritual brain and see life and know one another as spiritual beings, that we were short on. We lined you up in school and we said, well, your A is your B because we're going to grade you on a curve. We sent you to school and said, whoever does the best gets the next best opportunity. There was a lot of plowing ahead. But what we didn't teach so well was that you're a soul on earth, and that student sitting next to you, she's a soul on earth. And that fellow acting up in class who might be really annoying and angering to the teacher, he is a soul on earth. And what in all time and space put you in a classroom together now? Well, you're here to help each other along. You're here effectively to be trail angels for one another. And through this deep natural spiritual brain, we had yet to help you not just get present, but cultivate the form of receptive awareness where you receive guidance, where, as we just did now in Council, you are aware that you are loved every second by the Spirit in and through life. Whatever your word may be, higher power, God, Hashem, Allah, the universe, force in and through all life and nature, you are loved, you are held, and you are guided. And we can now say, we're sorry, but let's do it right. Let's hit reset. And you don't need to fix the problems we handed you because you won't even have them when you lead a more awakened life. You don't need to fight the system because you're going to generate an awakened system. You will be the catalyst for a new awakened society, the Renaissance, the spiritual Renaissance after the plague. Last time we had a plague, there was an enlightenment, a renaissance. Well, this time we have a plague. There's a time for renewal, rebuilding, and it has always been the youth that reawaken society. Whether it's the civil rights movement or the North African momentum, it has always been the young adults who awaken society. So in seeing you now, I see incredible possibility. I see incredible hope because you are aware. I see you doing this de facto of treating each other more gently, radical inclusivity, radical love. I don't care what your bio bodysuit looks like. I don't care what GPS coordinate you live on. You are my sister, my brother. You are my fellow soul on earth. And why? Just as in the classroom, in all time and space were you brought here now for one another, but to be trail angels for one another, to see and love each other into whole being, and to realize your genetic endowment for living an awakened life. You have this. And we're so grateful.
I think those are such beautiful thoughts and really speak to connection over competition. Yes. And I really appreciate that we're sharing this space in a global connection today. And I'm curious to know what our other participants think of what Dr. Miller has had to share so far. So I'll open it up to the rest of you to share any thoughts.
I'll go ahead and jump in. And thank you, Lisa. That was beautiful. Something I've been observing for the last couple of years, and it's really building off of what you just shared, that when we look at some of the research that's been done on caterpillars becoming butterflies, and not only do they have the caterpillar DNA, but they've got the butterfly DNA, and they have the imaginal cells that allow the caterpillar to become a butterfly. And I've just been observing for the last several years that there's something different about the youth, the three of you on the screen. It's like you have those imaginal cells. You've got something else in your DNA that we folks who have preceded you on this planet are missing. And the way you hold it, the way you express it, the way you are being with each other is beautiful. And I can't in any way know for certain, but that's just been an observation I've made.
That's wonderful. If I may, thank you, Tom. That was very nice. I'm going to use that, caterpillar. Thank you, Dr. Miller. What a pleasure to hear you, and what a pleasure to go into that moment that you took us all. You know, for me, it's very important, spirituality, and I have been in that world since the 80s, trying to understand the world, trying to bring sense to what our surroundings, and that's part of the work that I do and why I do what I do, devoted to bring the voices of young people and tell their stories, and make sure that we are able to listen to them, and that together we are able to make a difference and change. And with connecting the dots, there's the connection to, and excuse the pun here, but with what you're saying, it really touches me, because when I was doing the research of the film and listening to hundreds of young people from around the world, one of the things that struck me the most was that these young people were ready to talk. They had an opinion, they had a lot to say, and also they shared a common ground, which was unfortunately high rates of depression, high rates of anxiety, high rates of loneliness, and yes, unfortunately, many parents sharing their lost child to suicide. And at the same time, that incredible will from everyone to make a difference, to get out of all this world that we have created. And that was my decision of having a documentary that for the first time is the exclusive voices of young people. There's no adults in the film. And the reason for that was mainly to give them a voice, but also to bring awareness to society at large that this is our time to listen. Have we failed? I don't know. I think that as parents, as society, we did the best we knew and we could. I don't like putting blame in any of my narrative, in any of my films, even though doing human rights films, there's always a very tempting opportunity to put guilt or blame into someone because someone did not behave right. But it's not my style in my films, and I don't like, and in my life, I don't think that we should be putting blame. Did we do right? Did we do wrong? I think all of us did what we knew was best. There is no parent, there is no teacher out there, there is no spiritual person working in whatever capacity or community leader that doesn't want the best for their society, for their children, for their offsprings. I think that everybody does what they can and they know, and maybe what they bring forward. But what I do know is that these young people have a lot to say, that they are the most informed generation that we have ever seen before because of all the tools that you described that we did give them. We put a lot of challenge into as well, that competition, you have to succeed. And that has been a problem of many young people taking their lives. At the University of Toronto, here across the street from my home, 4 people, young people, took their lives because of the pressure last year. So the pressure is very high, and it's everywhere. But I think that bringing young people to the table to talk like we are doing, talking about them with them, having their opinion being validated, and being together in this conversation, because they do need an adult with them yet. Some of them are very young, and they still need that adult beside them. We are there to support everybody. And that's the message I think that the film is bringing, that community of people from around the world who have come on board to say, I'm going to share my story with the hopes that I can help someone in the process and bring in that light, like we saw in the trailer. But that's a big part of my narrative in saying there is light. Let's not stay in that darkness. Look behind the horizon and light will be with you. So it's very special to have you with us, Dr. Miller. It's a real honor for me, because when I watched a little bit about your work that Tom shared with me, I immediately felt the connection with that spiritual ending of the film, which is bringing everybody into that call to action through a spiritual calling, which is the sun is behind all of us and we are all together here. So thank you for that. And I will just now be quiet. So let the ambassadors of the film, Lyra and Heavenly, talk to us. Thank you.
So I wanted to say, I think in two ways, and the one is about that the youth have so much more awareness now. I think it's also in the media age that we all, kind of share from all over the world, wherever we are, our struggles, and there's always that some sort of common denominator, and really builds some sort of community. I guess, like as a teen, when I was struggling with my mental health, and I found someone from like the other end of the world also struggling. I felt some sort of like community. And I think it's bringing the youth so much more aware, but I think it's also when we bring them to the table and actually letting them speak and share, we need to actually take what they're saying seriously and taking it into consideration and giving them some sort of credit. I think when we see adolescents and kids, we kind of sometimes put them as, yeah, we hear what you're saying, but we're not fully taking it in. And I think that's giving them power. And I think there is, and on the other side, the competition side of it is, I see it so much with my work, that competition and that stress, and there's different stresses now than there were. And I think it's important to kind of show their individuality and that it's more about also your insight and how you're doing emotionally and mentally and personally, and not just that competition and that comparison with everything, because that brings so much anxiety and depression, the suicide rates and the self-harm rates and all of that. And I think that we need to give, the youth amazing, we really need to give them that credit. And when we give them that space, we really empowering them and building that community so they can feel heard and connected and regarded. So I think those were the two sides. Thank you.
To build off what Lear was saying, I feel like too, growing up, everyone says that, it's a part of growing up, whether it's being stressed or, you're going through, something emotional, it's just something that us as a society, we have to like get used to. It's a part of growing up, because some of the challenges I went through, like when I was in middle school and I got bullied and I didn't really like my appearance, I felt like I didn't fit in. I've always heard, not from my parents, but mainly from other people, that, it's a part of growing up. Well, in my opinion, I feel like depression shouldn't be a part of growing up. Bullying shouldn't be a part of growing up. Being stressed out, none of that should be a part of growing up, because us as beings, like Dr. Lisa was saying, we're all connected spiritually. And I feel like sometimes when we all get caught up with the stresses of life, whether whatever is going on in your life, when we get caught up with that, we tend to forget that we have a spirit in us, we have a light in us. And sometimes it just takes talking to one another to let each other know that we are not alone. And that's how I just had to look at it, like in my teenage years, because when I used to feel like I didn't have a purpose, my mom would always tell me that God put me on earth for a purpose, that we are all here to do something. We're all destined to do something big. We're all destined to do something different. And then on the way, help each other out. And that's kind of how I looked at with suicide prevention. My mom used to tell me, if you take your life, you'll be gone. You'll be 6 feet down below. You won't make it off to high school. You won't make it off to college. You won't make it off to, do whatever career that, you were destined to do. And I just kind of took that in and realized that, I needed to be strong and I needed to be a light for others because we're all struggling and we all just need that love and support from one another, just to know that we're not alone.
That's such a beautiful reflection, Heavenly. And this all for me keeps coming back to connection and finding connection with one another and your communities. And I'm very curious to hear from you both as well, how you found connection from participating in the film, because I know you participated in the film years ago, but we're still here. We're still having these conversations with you both. And that seems to have continued on and really inspired the two of you to continue on in supporting and advocating for youth mental health movements. So I'm curious to hear if you found yourself connecting to other participants in the film like this and what that has looked like for you both.
I feel like I really connected with a lot of participants in the film, especially through, technology, Naomi, she was able to get people from all around the world just to come together and kind of share our struggles. And it let me know that I'm not alone, as a teenager when, I was depressed, I'm not alone dealing with that. Unfortunately, so many other young people are dealing with depression. They feel like they don't fit in. And I feel like since we have that common ground, we can come together and realize, for one, we need love. We need to, feel like we fit in no matter where that is, no matter where you're at on the planet. We have to build a community where we can fit in and learn how to love ourselves. I always say I have a radio show at my college called Therapeutic Tuesdays, and I feel like I repeat this a lot, that in our lives, we're really on a self-love journey. So when I seen a lot of participants in the film, I feel like we're all on a self-love journey. We're all just trying to learn how to love ourselves with the tools that we were given, whether it's from our parents, whether it's from our peers that we have in our community, from our teachers, just from anywhere that we're observing. We have to use those tools, but also ourselves to learn how to love ourselves and to accept ourselves in the communities that we were brought up in.
It's so true. So I think, like for me, when I first started struggling as a teenager, I was so lost. I don't know what was going on. I had the most supportive family, but I literally had no idea what mental health was, what was, happening. And as soon as I found one person that I could kind of relate to, it was like, oh, it's not just me, or it's something like, oh, okay, there's someone else that's going through it, or it's similar, not exactly, but it's okay. Like we in this, it was almost like we're in this together. So I think I actually have a little story, that I wanted to share that happened recently. And I think it's kind of like connecting the dots a bit in terms of connection with people from all over the world. I went overseas and I have a semicolon, which is the mental health symbol. And my waiter also had a semicolon tattoo. And I said to him, oh, I have the same tattoo as you. And he's like, okay. And I took his arm and I took my semicolon and I put it on his semicolon. And we both started to cry. And I think it was just like that, like in a connection. I think being in a part of the film and watching it, it was just like tears, because it was that connection of people who are going or went through the same things or similar things. And it's feeling, again, that like connection on a deeper level, because I always feel someone that has struggled with mental health, someone who doesn't truly understand the pain that we go through. So it's just, I think it's just for me, it was very powerful. And it was definitely a sense of belonging. Yeah, sorry.
May I share how moving that is? A semicolon is the gateway to the next phase of your life. And science indeed shows that suffering is a gateway to a deepening of spiritual awareness, of a deeper connection, a deeper love, if we say yes to it. So when we have looked at people over time from 16 to 26 and onward, the people who at 26 have a strong, profound spiritual life within or without of a faith tradition, and whatever their tradition may be, a strong spiritual life at 26 are 2.5 times more likely to have suffered to get there in the past 10 years since they were 16. So you are in your suffering presented with an opportunity to deepen what spirit in and through life, what higher power, what is life showing me now? The things that used to be just okay no longer do it. My way of living that felt just okay doesn't do it anymore. There's something more, that nagging hunger. And you are then at the trailhead of a very sacred quest. We see this in longitudinal twin studies when spiritual life surges at mid-adolescence into late adolescence. There's a surge from the inside out, a biological clock. And with this expanded vessel for meaning and purpose and transcendent love and connection, the old way can leave us feeling like we have a half empty glass of spirituality. What is my purpose? What is the purpose? Who could we really be to one another? And this is an invitation, the knock at the door for a journey that we don't go on alone. We go with our Sangha, Minyan, semicolon friend. We're together. So you are right. The semicolon is a gateway, and your suffering is not lost time or downtime. And it certainly doesn't mean we have less in life. It's actually the most important work you'll do in your entire lives. It is developmental depression, an invitation to a deepening of your soul, of your connection to the soul in and through one another. And it often happens for most people between 15 and 22. No one tells you it's coming, but it'd be nice if we did. And it is a scientifically mirrored process through which we awaken through the porthole of struggle. Struggle is an invitation. So this is an extraordinary moment in your life. You are made deeper, more loving, more by this. This is the most important work of your entire lives, and you're better at it. You're more attuned to what's true versus phony. You're more aware when you see the light of truth if the torchbearer is walking the walk that is being talked, right? You are exquisitely sensitive and gifted from 15 to 22 at knowing and resonating in your deep heart of what's true. So this is not a pain that is strictly understood in terms of the outside things coming at you. This is a pain of your spiritual emergence, looking at the outside and saying, what is really true and how can we live and walk a life of truth? You are powerful.
That's so wonderful, because having known these two young ladies for a number of years, I started the research of the film in 2017. So this is now almost 5 years. In that age group that you're talking and that span, I have seen a lot of changes because we've been communicating over time. And at the beginning with the visual diaries that I created for a way of communication, I have seen a lot of very dark moments. So to see Liv right now, smiling, sharing where she is right now, and where I have seen that growth is really fantastic. It's like such an honor. I'm so really pleased to see where you are, because I share those moments. I mean, I was at the other side all the time in some moments that were really very dark, and there seemed that there was no light coming, right? And I'm not a professional in the film, but we just having someone that is listening, I think that's what it was important. Heavenly was going through a lot of things as well, and unfortunately the loss of her mother and her bullying at school, but always taking that positive side that there was a light. There was that spirituality in herself that she was instilled from the beginning that there's going to be a way out. And also her wish all along to be able to share with others so they will not feel that bullying effect that she had been feeling for so long. So right now, even going into psychology and being part of the world of the mental health professionals is just wonderful. So it's a real privilege for me when I share these platforms with the ambassadors of the film. This is the film that they have helped me create. They have allowed me to bring my dream into picture, is to see the progress, which if the film inspire others watching to know that they can open up, because these young people share their stories and their voices right now, to see the progress. I wish that everybody will see you talking and expressing where you are right now, to even inspire more of this is possible. We have gone through that journey that Dr. Miller is talking about, and hopefully you are very close to the other side, if not there yet.
Lisa, can you talk a bit more about how science is catching up with the wisdom traditions, the spiritual traditions, and how it's informed your research and how you're being received by your colleagues and peers and audiences that you speak to?
Every tradition through time has marked emerging adulthood as a time where we both change physically, we look different, we're fertile, we're stronger, and with that change physically is an equal change spiritually. We have an augmented capacity to connect to the transcendent, to the sacred, and we want to know it. We want to know what's true. We hunger, and all around the world, what wisdom traditions have carried as young adulthood as spiritually emergent, spiritually coming of age, is mirrored by science. There's a beautiful study done in which 11 countries all around the world, Thailand, Uganda, UK, the US, all around the world, late adolescents and emerging adults were asked about their sense of ultimate reality. And while there were beautiful varieties across the faith traditions in what the higher power was called or what the nature of reality was understood symbolically, every adolescent on earth hungered for ultimate understanding. What is the deep nature of life and what is my place in it? Every adolescent on earth wondered about a loving guiding force in and through all life. Every adolescent on earth wondered how my life can be ethical and one of contribution. Every adolescent on earth wondered about what our relationship to one another as a spiritual event might be. So with the booting up marked by longitudinal twin studies, the surge from the inside out in spiritual awakening with adolescents, there is a universal quest. So how magnificent that the film and how magnificent that our moderators and leaders here today come from all over the world, because there is one path in life, which is one of spiritual awakening. And it's told through a trial, through a struggle, through a pathway in which at some moment, I, as the young adult, might not know if my life is worth living. I might feel useless. I might feel despair. I might know if the outside world has any hope. And that moment is the perfect moment. That is the opportunity to open the heart through meditation, prayer, goodness to one another, nature, as we opened here today in knowing, and feel that life itself loves you. Life itself is buoyant and guides you. And life itself never departs. You are never alone. So whether we say God or Hashem or Allah or the universe, whatever our word may be, there is a deep, loving, guiding force in and through life that you can come to know in your most despairing moment. In fact, are best equipped to open up to in your most despairing moment. Suicide is the misunderstanding that because I feel worthless or life feels low, that it's not worth living. It is instead a question in this moment of despair. What will make your life worth living?
That's so powerful, Dr. Miller. And I'm really loving where we've gone with this conversation so far and what everyone has shared. So thank you. And personally, the age piece is really interesting to me, having just turned 26 as well. I really resonated with what you shared about that age. And I'm very curious, I know you just shared some strategies, but from other participants as well, how can we best support young people ages 15 to 22 who are going through these things, and how can older generations guide, and how can peers support one another through these really difficult questions, and knowing that there is a light and there is another side, but in those moments where it feels really challenging.
I'll share my thoughts. I think a lot of it has to do with support, and providing a space for the age group, for the youth, to actually share and acknowledge, and like truly support. And I think a lot of the time, what I see with my work, with all the questions and kind of figuring it out, and the struggles, is almost like feeling lost. And I think it was, like Dr. Isaac, you said, it was, well, what is what is going to give me the purpose to carry on, and kind of finding that hope. And a lot of the time they just feel really lost, and like, I don't know. So I think truly giving them guidance and support, and finding and I think what's really important is being proactive about it. I think that's where a lot of research needs to come in, where we actually need to listen to them, is to be proactive about it, where they're not getting to that point of despair, where they truly, I mean, like I felt, you don't know, you can't do it anymore. So I think providing a space in all the sectors of life, if it's in the education, in family, giving parents tools on how to support, giving peers tools how to support. I think there needs to be a lot more awareness and a lot more talk. And the beauty of, Connecting Dots is kind of how we are bringing that awareness and speaking up. And that's one of the main, I believe, one of the main ways to bring understanding and support, and truly awareness to helping and guiding and understanding. That's my belief.
I feel like that's one of the biggest things is, people just wants to feel like, people understands them, or people, they feel love, they feel that sense of purpose. Because, I remember, back when I was a teenager and I questioned, what am I even doing on this earth? And I really found that out through writing, through art, and especially through one of my teachers. She had us like read poems, and then she had us write like what we thought about them. And then it seems like once I started doing that, I ended up writing motivational poems about like my feelings of depression, anxiety, what I was going through. And then, I don't know, somehow it has turned into me wanting to be a motivational speaker. And then back then I didn't have no clue about what psychology was or what psychologists did. And like, once I discovered that field, I was like, yes, that's my purpose, is to make a difference, because I knew how it felt to be in the dark and to feel like, no one understands me, nothing's going to get better. And I knew how it felt to be in the dark. So when I discovered that light, I really want to, help other youth, see that light, be like, oh, wow, this world isn't so dark after all. You might feel like you're in that dark moment now, but you don't know what's coming. It's kind of like being in a dark cave and just kind of making your way out and seeing that sun, kind of like what Nathan Harmon said in Connecting the Dots, seeing that sun go above the horizon and actually seeing it and feeling it for yourself. But you have to stay here in order to see that light happen for yourself.
If I may add to those two wonderful comments, what I learned from observing and also from the film, sorry, I lost my voice, I've been talking too much, is that young people are looking for validation, and they are probably the loneliest generation that we have ever seen in a world of connectivity. So it's offering that open space to be able to talk, but that space has to be without judgment. That space has to be safe, and that space has to hold validation, like Lear was saying, to whoever is sharing that story. And that's something that needs to be still worked by very many groups in this world. The lack of, taking away that stigma, talking about mental health openly, talking about each other's problems without thinking that that problem is too minute in comparison to what other person is going through. And that, I think, is opening that safe space in a world also where diversity is very much a big part of what we talk about right now. Other generations never talk about that diversity, never talk about gender equality, never talked about certain topics, including mental health, that were very taboo. We don't talk about these things. Or if we talk about it, we probably talk about them in the wrong way. Now, we have a scene in the film where we talk about how important it is for us to understand each other's culture. Yes, we live in a world of globalization where we are all one, where we are all together, where we are all the same, where we are all human beings. But the reality is that those groups who are different, who have an accent, who have a different color, who have a different gender, really need to be understood in order for any of us to go into that world. So they are protecting themselves as well. And they are saying it very openly. And we have a scene in the film where we talk openly about that. In order for us to go into any of these groups of communities that are foreign to us, either we have to be understanding and have the knowledge to go in, or stay out until you do get that knowledge. So we come back to education. Education is paramount. So in order for us to navigate in this world that is really about all of us, but we have to respect our differences. And yes, we are the same, but we are different. So how do we respect our differences? And that respect of difference comes to spirituality, comes to different religious beliefs, comes to not blaming as well, and not judgment, and opening up that space that it's very safe and that overall gives validation. And I think that probably is the way to start creating that community that we need. We all belong to a community somehow. And for me, working on global films that I have done over the years, always looking at a global perspective, it's so important for me to understand that that person maybe reacted to something I said in a way that I did not perceive properly, that it hurted me. And instead of feeling so bad about that comment, trying to understand that he or she don't have the knowledge to understand where I come from, or why I'm doing what I'm doing, or why am I in that space. And it's a very difficult journey that we all need to understand. It's a learning process.
Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing. And Noemi, I keep coming back to this piece that you keep sharing on not blaming people. And I really think when you aim to reduce or remove that blame and judgment, you invite people to be part of the solution and part of new ideas and ways forward. So I think that's a really important piece to share. I would like to just open it up to anyone else to share anything that's come up for them throughout this conversation, and thank everyone for participating in the chat as well. It's been very active, and I've seen some really wonderful comments in here that what we're sharing so far is really resonating with a lot of people, and just some appreciation for this conversation. So it's really wonderful to hear. Thank you. And if there's any questions that come up in the chat as well, we'd be happy to take some time to answer them, but I'll pass it back to our panelists to see if there's anything else they would like to share.
I just wanted to share that yesterday, one of the youth panelists, Fenty Royal, shared that in schools, there's a half-hour drill regularly for fire drills. And so the class is disrupted. Everybody's taken out of the classroom and instructed how to safely get out of the building. And so that physical safety is built into our education system, but there's no equivalent for mental health safety. And Finty was just commenting, just such a practical idea about what could be done in the school setting to create, picking up on Nomi's comment, a safe space for the teacher and the students to become more enlightened, more aware, more engaged in a conversation around mental health. And I completely appreciate how overburdened teachers are and the school administrators are, and all of the things that are being placed on the shoulders of the school administrators and the teachers in the classroom. But just something so simple as a regular mental health drill, like a fire drill, could make a huge difference in making it possible for youth to understand that they're not alone.
Tom, that's such a beautiful point. And if we think from the therapist chair back, from treatment to prevention, as some of our moderators raised, and from prevention to the culture and climate in which we develop as young adults, at all points in this continuum, we have an opportunity to strengthen the spiritual core, the natural spiritual core of the student. And when we do, we put the spiritual core back in to the whole student. Now, that process is actually well understood. There are schools that do that, but there's inefficiency in the exchange of practices. And so that in a way that is free and open, using the awakened brain, we created Awakened Schools, through which leaders from around the world share ways of awakening your school. And I'll give you 2 or 3 examples. We found in every school, whether it was a school that was a Catholic school, a yeshiva founded by the Black Panthers, a public school in a well-resourced or not well-resourced area, no matter where, there were core drivers of the relational culture where, for instance, there was, as you suggest, Tom, a school-wide moment of transcendent awareness, not just mindfulness, which gets us present and is helpful, but then allows us to cross the threshold into a form of transcendent, spiritual, awakened awareness, like the council exercise. Awakened schools have a language for intuition and mystical awareness, transcendent catch in the catcher's mix. Awakened schools have a point person whose job, their paid line, is to speak up on behalf of the spiritual values. We could throw this student out. They've broken the rules 3 times, but can't you see her soul is aching for connection? Aren't our spiritual values such that we want to draw her into relationship, not cast her out? These are 3 examples of how the culture and climate of a school or any organization can become an awakened school, an awakened organization. And I see our moderators today transforming culture and climate to be awakened, to wake up. And you're doing it, as I see it, from the inside out, listening to your natural spiritual heart, acting and loving one another in a way that is relationally spiritual. You're walking the walk and you're talking the walk. So I think that the theme that keeps coming up today, that you, the young adults, are co-creators of your own schools, of your own culture and climate, of our shared world, is exactly right. You have an unfettered passion for a renaissance, a spiritual renaissance.
Can I say something? It's such a good point. So I left school because I just didn't get the support that I needed, and they didn't even notice that I left. And I remember I was sitting on my couch and I looked at my dad and I'm like, my life mission is that no kid will go through what I went through at school. And I made it mine. He was like, okay. And that, and that's kind of why I opened up my company, is genuinely to see how are we changing, how are we providing bringing mental health into education, because there's such a fine line between what what teachers can say, what they can't say, where do we help, what do we have, or do we just kind of kick them out there? A bit of a disruption, to the school day and our reputation. So it's almost bringing not only just a class or just one teacher that kind of knows about mental health. It's really like the awakening. It's making it an ethos, and it's bringing it as the vibe of the school, that your mental health and mental health needs and support is a priority. And I know that teachers are up to here and everyone's up to here, but it's just, if we want the kids and the youth to be okay and supported and helped, then we need to create that as not just a 1 hour a week, needs to be consistent and needs to be proactive. And I think it's so important, because the school is where kids are all the time, and it has such a big influence, and the people that are in the school have such a big influence. And it's sometimes a family can't be that, and if a school can have that space and support, I mean, it makes such a difference. So I think we change the perspective on what we see, and that it's not a taboo. But just like we have sports class, we really can also integrate a mental health class. So yeah.
I really liked what you said there, how we shouldn't just focus on mental health for like 1 hour, like a school year, because growing up, it's like every year there was always, it was like an hour long. It was a video about, how depression looked like, how anger looks like whenever people are really angry, or just anxiety. But they only spent 1 hour on it. And then after that video, they would always give us a yellow slip that says, are you okay? Or do you need to talk to someone, maybe not like right this minute, but, in a few hours, or do you need to talk to someone now? But they only did that once a year. And I feel like in all schools across the world, we should have mental health classes where students, takes a class, I don't really know if it needs to be by semester base, but, at least one, class, a year that, teaches kids, about what mental health is, whether it's depression, anxiety, and all these issues at hand, and let them know that, they're not alone, and let them know that there's treatment out there, there's support out there. But I feel like it does need to be more focused on, and we could probably do that through a class. At my college, I'm trying to get a club started where I don't really know what day I want to do it on yet, but where we come together and every week it's a different mental health topic. That way they can share their own personal story, whether it's depression that week, they can share what they went through, what helped them, and just how they're doing right now. And we just kind of check in on each other.
That group sounds beautiful. There's a way of knowing and loving and seeing each other in a spiritually, intentionally supportive group. The way that I might be seen by the locker, someone's looking at my clothes, they're looking at my body, they're wondering how I did compared to them. Those are all through the lens of achieving awareness. We treat each other like commodities that could be ordered on Google. What will you do for me? How big or good are you? And that's a very narrow, unfulfilling way to live. But in the group that you're creating, I could have just gotten an A or a D. I could look like anything or nothing. And you look at me as a soul on earth. You look at me with love. We see each other as souls on earth. And that's a form of friendship that's very deep and very real. That's a choice. And you're choosing to create a community of love. It's a community of spiritual connection. Phenomenal. Every tradition has it. Sangha, Minyan, fellowship. But without that in our lives, we fall into a world where we're treated like items in the marketplace. You're creating a spiritual community.
Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing those final thoughts. And I think that's such a great and inspiring note to leave us on, a hopeful note. And I'm really excited to hear about all your developments, Heavenly and Lyra as well, and all the good things that are coming for you both that you're creating. So thank you so much. And I'd like to invite Jim to rejoin us to help us close out this really wonderful and connection-filled conversation today. So over to you, Jim.
Thank you, Christy, for a marvelous program that you've choreographed. I think as a father, I would agree with, I think it was your statement, Tom, earlier, that the young people coming up seem to be qualitatively ahead, if I remember my own youth correctly. And I just want to acknowledge it and celebrate it. And I think, we don't have a lot of time, but I'd like to probe, maybe starting with you, Lisa, this issue of the relationship between spirituality and religion, because I think the young people today have a challenge that we didn't have when we were younger, certainly our grandparents. And what I mean by that is that, 100 years ago, spirituality and religion were basically conflated. And one was sort of a Christian or a Jew in America, a Muslim in the Middle East. But that, what's really happened over the last 50 years or so is that separation between spirituality and religion. So you have actually some very complicated sociology going on, where the United States is considered one of the most religious countries in the industrial world. And yet the statistics on youth alienation are off the charts. And so I would wonder how you would be wanting to really define what spirituality means in this era where religion is less and less informing spirituality. And I would love to hear from you young people, sort of as you think about your spirituality, how would you even begin to define it? What does it mean when you say the awakened brain? Just so that people have some sense of some handles to hold on to as we leave this very rich discussion. What would they be in this very complicated, out of the box world in which we find ourselves? Starting with you, Lisa, what would be your comments?
The Awakened Brain is a book I wrote. This is The Awakened Brain. And The Awakened Brain is a deep look at our deep natural spiritual nature that in young adulthood we discover through quest. The stories in The Awakened Brain are the stories of now grown-up leaders who in their own young adulthood wondered if there was any meaning or purpose, struggled for this transcendent connection, and show that your pathway right now is exactly the work for you to do to awaken and have the life that is true for your own journey, your own sacred path. So in the world, 2/3 of people are spiritual and religious, and 1/3 of people are spiritual but not religious. Everyone is a naturally spiritual being by birth. We're born physical beings, emotional and cognitive beings, and we are born spiritual beings. Religion is a gift of our ancestors, our community. It is environmentally transmitted. It is not inborn. So we are innately spiritual beings. Religion is transmitted through the environment. And for many people, religion can be a rich embrace of their spiritual core. And for many people, the spiritual core is strengthened in relationship to nature, in watching the patterns of regeneration in nature, the mother and baby goose, the death and rebirth that we see every day in nature, or through art and music and poetry. But whether or not we grew up with a faith tradition or choose one now, and for many people, there's a notion of dharma. They take from one tradition and another. And for some people, their spirituality is entirely outside of religion. No matter how we walk this path, we are all spiritual beings. The choice and the practice is, do we choose to use our spiritual brain? Do we take this birthright, our natural spiritual brain, and awaken our naturally spiritual brain? And that's a choice that is most often in young adulthood so present that it hurts not to. Young people say this despair, it's when I stop asking the spiritual questions that it even hurts more. This is the beckoning, the dark night of the soul, the road of trials that leads to the spiritual awakening that is your footing for the rest of your life. It is the foundation for your entire adult life. It is more important than anything you do or have. And it's all of ours, and it's yours.
Thank you. Thank you. It's such a profound notion that it's innate, and the religion shapes it or not environmentally later on in our childhood and youth. So thank you for that. Lear, how would you define your spirituality? Go ahead. I'm sorry, Nomi.
No, I just wanted to make a comment. I should not
Sure.
do. It's my Latin nature. You see, that jumps in. But what you're talking, Dr. Miller, is about the Freudian notion of nature and nurture, right? We are born with the spirituality, and nurture is what we get from around.
So I'm going on twin studies, right? Looking at twin studies and epidemiology.
Yes. So it's actually the most interesting definition that I've heard so far ever, because I've been, thank you for that question, Jim, on the difference between spirituality and religion, because most people don't know. And myself, I have a struggle sometimes defining what's spirituality and what's religion. And I always talk about the fact that it's not the same, but I never had the words. Now you just gave us that. Thank you for that, because it's so important and it comes out all the time. And it's been so easily understood by all of us, I think. So much appreciated.
Thank you. And then I was just going to ask the three young women to comment by giving us their specific definition of what spirituality means to them, starting with Lear.
I connected with what you said, Anna, in terms of the spirituality, religion, and then kind of just the spirituality. I think also it kind of, I'm always like, as you said, sometimes you don't have how to kind of describe it or clarify it. But I think for me, it's more just, awareness, and a lot of, in terms of my environment and how my environment affects me and how I affect my environment, and kind of creating a very calm space. And for me, that's where I most, I don't really know the words, but it's almost like a calm space of just being whole and very it's hard for me to kind of describe, because I don't want to not use the right word, but it's for me, it's just connection with myself a lot, and connection with my environment that I'm creating. And I think it's very important for me, and just my mental health. And yeah, I think for me, it's just connection within myself and the people that are very important to me, in creating that space. Yeah. And just kind of the perspective of what kind of needs to be, what will be for me, and what I can bring, that open energy, and a lot of, yeah, just finding, creating that energy, and just knowing has kind of helped me not be so anxious and not be so everything's going to end if this doesn't go the way it's going. My head needs it to go. So yeah, I think definitely connection, kind of creating a space for that.
I think that's a very profound notion, Lear, that there's a deep relationship, I think, between spirituality and a sense of connection. Yeah. Because it's our spiritual intelligence, I would say, Lisa, can correct me if I'm wrong, that really allows us to experience and understand our connection with others, our connection with nature, our connection with spirit. And it's within that context, going back to your original opening and meditation, it's in that sense of connection that you feel loved, right? So that's very profound, Lear. Thank you. That's a deep expression of spirituality. But knowing, it's like, how do you define love, right? How do you define justice? These aren't easy words. They're easy to say, but they're almost impossible to define. And so I want to just say that before we all stumble in our articulation here. These are deep issues. There's like almost like a bottomless pit. Heavenly, what would you say?
I really believe there's many different ways you could define spirituality, but for me, it has to be connection, being able to connect to other people. There's a sense of not feeling alone. And, going back to, when I lost my mom, I'm a Christian, but I also, like Dr. Miller says, spirituality and religion, can be probably intertwined or connected. So, sometimes, like when she had us do that exercise where, we closed our eyes and we invited people to our table, whether they're living or deceased, that actually made me feel closer to my mom. Like I could actually, as weird as this might sound, feel the spirit of my mom, that she's still with me and she's proud of me because she was still living when I was doing the Connecting the Dots film. And she was so proud of me. And then, when everything got released or published, she wasn't here no more, but I know if she was, she'd be so proud of me. So spirituality, I feel like you can connect to people who are still living, people who you really love and connect with, but you can also connect with people who are no longer here because they're always with you. So very deep.
Yeah, no, that is a powerful point, connecting with the people, with the ancestors, connecting with other life forms, connecting with sentient beings everywhere. That's the intelligent, that's the spiritual, that's the portal that spiritual intelligence opens. I mean, if you think about it at that level. So
and we are going into something that's true and real. Yes, your mother is there. And yes, the spirit in and through fellow living beings is here. And we are built to know that. And Heavenly, I'm so grateful you said that, because almost every tradition on earth and through time has known that we maintain a deep loving connection with our ancestors. And when we see complicated bereavement where someone crosses over and there's a total unraveling, it's because there's yet to be the encouragement, the fostering, the honoring of that true, enduring spiritual connection through time and space. Heavenly, yes.
If I can have one more thing, I feel like, because, I've been through grief therapy, grief counseling, and I've never had that exercise done that you've done. I feel like that should be incorporated. And, there's different kinds of therapies. Like I took a introduction counseling class. So, there's different theories, but I feel like spirituality should be incorporated in every session because, like you said, it's innate in us. We all have some kind of spirit within us. So I feel like that should be probably in every counseling session. That would probably make everyone feel more whole and even better.
And most suffering, I so agree, is indeed this opportunity to strengthen our spiritual heart and connect that much more strongly so that we're made more connected and feel more loved. You're so wise, Heavenly.
Thank you. Thank you. You brought in a very deep piece. Christy, what would you say? How would you define your spirituality?
Good question, a big question. I really appreciate that both you and Dr. Miller made the connection to nature, because I think that's where I feel most spiritual and feel very small when I'm in nature, but in a good way, in a very connected way. It reminds me that there's so many things that are bigger than myself. And if anyone had the chance to catch the lunar eclipse that happened last month, that was a really spiritual moment for me. And knowing that people all around the world were seeing the same thing was really, really cool and a way to find connection. So for me, spirituality is being in nature and feeling small in the best way.
Well, you know, and if you think about it, that was the original point of departure. You go back 10, 20, 30,000 years, the shamans and the origins of human spirituality long before religion came out of nature. And the shamans were those beings that could understand both the language of nature and the language of society and created that bridge, the bridge back to the mother. And so you're bringing in the bedrock, Christy, out of which all of it sprang one way or another. Yeah, that's very, very good. That's very, very good. I can't bear to stop this conversation. Tom, what do you think? And then Nomi, we'll give you the last word on spirituality before we bring this up to a close. Tom, what would you say?
Yeah, it's very much in keeping with everything that's been shared. I spend as much time in nature as possible. It's a source for me. The exercise that Lisa shared with us at the beginning of the program today, I've had my counsel for many years now that I go to, and the counsel continues to grow with the passing of family members and others. It's a tremendous source of inspiration and support for me, and then my ongoing spiritual practices.
Thank you. Thank you. Nomi.
Yes, well,
final word.
A few words. For me, spirituality is part of my life. I wake up 2 hours earlier every morning of the time that I should be waking up. So I have time to do my meditation. I have time to do my Qigong. I have time to do my yoga. I have time to center myself. I have time to light up a candle and connect with the spirits that are not here, feel their energy. And all of that time is extremely important for me, that to start a day. What's a good day for me is when I have that time, that I can actually ground myself before I'm able to do the work that I'm doing. So it's part of my life, and it's part of my message in all my films. I think I bring a lot of that subtleness somehow. People call it symbols, but it's all that spiritual guidance somehow into the message of connecting because of the topics that I deal with. So I'm very, very pleased to have shared this panel today. Dr. Miller, all my love to you, virtually right now, but really your words have been very special. That exercise, like Heavenly said, was very, very beautiful. And I will try to do that again alone when I talk to all my spirits and my loved people. So thank you for teaching that. Lear, what a pleasure to have you and see the progress and see you where you are right now, and my very best. And we'll see you on Friday when we see you again. Heavenly, I'm so honored to have you and see what you're doing and what you're up to and how you're sharing and your wisdom. So continue and be sure, as we speak many times on text, that your mother is seeing all of this. I'm positive. So continue with that. Tom and Jim, thank you for putting this space. I want to thank the audience for who are watching us today, for their time, to take their time and be with us. I think it's so important to take that moment and reflect and have this conversation about youth mental health, which is affecting all of us. And like I always say, we should not think about them as if our future, but our present. Let's bring everybody to the conversation. And in order to do that, I invite everybody to join us in the mission that we are set to do with this film. Join all the young voices that are part of the film and that so willingly have been sharing their stories with the world, with the hopes that we can make a difference. I am committed to them for their honesty and their willingness to share such difficult moments of their journey. And I'm hoping that everybody will join us into what we are doing. Please connect with us through connectingthedotsfilm.com. See how you can bring the film to your community, open up the conversation. Those conversations have brought us right now proudly to share implementation of changes in some communities as a result of the discussions that happened after watching the film. A lot of what we spoke today are part of the conversations that daily we have with screenings. Tomorrow we are showing the film in the Netherlands. This past weekend was in Mexico, and next week is in Australia, and we continue. So please join us. We have a common language right now, a common mission, www.connectingthedotsfilm.com. Get in touch, bring the film to your community, and be with us, because we all need to be together to make a difference. So thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you, Nomi, and thank you all for sharing your wisdom today. You know, it's occurring to me that at its essence, spiritual intelligence is what enables the brain to wake up. So, Lisa, the title of your book, The Awakened Brain, is the essential definition of spiritual intelligence. And I'm reminded of the Buddha when he was asked what enlightenment was. He said, I woke up. I'm awake. And Lear and Heavenly and Christy, you are so awake. I just want to acknowledge it. That is spiritual intelligence, everyone. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And I'm profoundly moved by the quality and depth of this discussion today. Nomi, Tom, thank you for bringing this group together. And Lisa, I read your book. It was a great book. I recommend it to everyone because that's the bottom line. We just need to wake up. That's our spiritual intelligence. So thank you for that great service that you brought for us. That'll do it for today, everyone. You're all welcome to the after session chat. You'll see the link in the chat box. We'll see you again tomorrow for day 3 of our exploration of a global phenomenon of mental health in youth. That'll be tomorrow again on Humanity Rising, day 3 of a 6-day program. Thank you, everyone. Bye for now.